questions. You can sit right there. And I thought that I would kick off the discussion, given that each panelist has discussed different approaches and different aspects pertaining to norms of responsible behavior in space. In the year ahead, and this is a question that perhaps I can start with Masami, and then 30 seconds each panelist only, so please limit your responses. What should the international community's area of focus be to advance space as a peaceful and sustainable domain for all? So in the year ahead, top priority. Masami, please go first.
So I'm going to talk about more as the Washington rep from JAXA of myself, what I want to do in the next coming year. And I would like to work on formalizing, I just said that Artemis Accords is a non-binding declaration, formalizing an agreement on how we want to operate, and also especially agreeing on having our boots on the moon. And as our Prime Minister Kishida already announced that he would like to see Japanese astronauts on the lunar surface by the late 2020s. So specifically to work on that. I love being on the forefront of making changes in space, and that's what we do in our office, so that's what I want to do. And also, we just chose our two new astronauts that could potentially be, in the future, going to the moon orbit or the surface. I want to make an environment where they can safely, responsibly work and sustainably work on the surface of the moon. And we have signed this January 13th at NASA headquarters. Our leadership, Prime Minister again, came to witness the signing of the framework agreement that is probably one of the first formal schemes that we can use for agreements on such activities on the lunar surface. So all of this coming together, I want to be focusing with the international partners to making these actually come true.
Thank you very much, Masami. Paul, do you have a response? What should the international community's area of focus be in the year ahead?
On norms of behavior?
Yes.
Yes. I agree very much with my Japanese colleague, and looking at what Artemis are doing, I guess we are a bit, again, pioneers within the international community. I think Artemis is discussing deconfliction. So that is very important, how not to have traffic jams on the moon and fights eventually. And Artemis is also discussing emerging actors in space. As a diplomat, I see a difficulty here of the West again against the rest, which we are having in this war, which was started by Russia against Ukraine. But we see lines which are forming, which shouldn't be forming, of the West against the rest. And we must avoid that happening in space. We must have an inclusive dialogue. Yes, I'm not talking for my government, I'm talking personally, but we should have the Russians on board, the Chinese on board, maybe not now, maybe later, and the emerging actors. India is a very important actor, of course. So this is a big challenge for diplomats and for technicians.
Thank you very much. And Crystal?
So I don't disagree with my previous colleagues. We're very interested in looking at some of these cislunar issues. It's happening very soon. It's happening in a variety of different types of actors. And obviously, I care a lot about anti-satellite testing and developing norms. I would highlight one more just because you're asking sort of what are the priorities for the coming year. And I would say international SSA coordination. We're seeing real leaps and bounds forward in terms of the technical knowledge, in terms of data sources and availability. But how we actually manage that, again, among these different types of actors on an international, global level is still very unclear. A lot of the forums that do exist are limited to countries, and so we have a question relating to the commercial sector, but then also, as Paul was saying about emerging countries, how do you ensure that you encourage sustainable space behavior without disadvantaging new entrants? And I think SSA is one of those areas where we see that question playing out in the very near future.
Thank you. So we have time for one more question, and this comes from Rebecca in the audience. and it's how can we better engage young professionals such as those that are here today with the international collaborative work that we're doing and engage in these types of norms of behavior conversations. Perhaps, I don't know if there's a volunteer, otherwise I'll pick a speaker. Anyone want to take that?
Sure, I can start. I think there's a couple things that immediately come to mind. I mean, this is going to be an ongoing issue. So part of it is sort of making sure everyone is on board. Those who are interested aren't just students, right? Young professionals means everyone as they're going into different jobs, as you're studying things in school, as you're working on things. And so I think there's the ability to contribute to research. A lot of these issues are developing. We still need to understand aspects of it on the technical side or looking through it through a diplomatic, policy lens. And so actually contributing to research is very real and very important. Secure World, for instance, runs a fellowship program. We have 2 young professionals who are contributing to the body of knowledge that's participating in this. I think groups like this are really important. SGAC presents to Copious. That's a really cool opportunity for students to put their voice directly into an international dialogue, and there are other things like that. And I think being aware and being a voice within wherever your organization is really important. These are kind of hard to disagree with principles, but what that actually means is they come into play by governments, by companies, by academia, by nonprofits. Young professionals have just as much of a say in many of these organizations as anyone else does. And so I would say educate yourselves as you already are, and then continue to have these conversations within your respective organizations, because that is part of what feeds up into these activities.
Thank you. And with that, we will close today's panel. Thank you very much to our speakers. The conversation can continue during lunch or after, during coffee breaks. So thank you again to our speakers, and I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon.